As the school year ends and summer begins, many parents and teachers worry about the summer slide. The summer slide is the tendency for students to lose some of the achievement gains they made during the previous school year. To combat this learning loss, many districts are focusing on providing additional opportunities for students to learn over the summer. How can we combat the summer slide? Are summer learning programs the answer? And how can we ensure that all students have access to these programs? This is what I want to know. And today I'm joined by Aaron Dworkin to find out. Aaron Dworkin is the CEO of the National Summer Learning Association, which works to ensure that all young people in America, especially the most vulnerable, can access and afford a high-quality summer learning experience every year. He joins us today to discuss if summer learning programs can combat the summer slide. Aaron, welcome to the show.
It is an honor to be here.
I tell you what, Aaron, I have checked you out. By the way, I don't have your ATM number, but I have checked you out, and I know that you have had a passion for working on behalf of kids. So the first question that comes to mind, someone with your talent and skills, what drew you to this kind of work? Because it takes a special something to dedicate your life to working on behalf of kids.
Well, again, thank you for the chance to be in conversation with you, Kevin. I'll share two quick things on this. One is, as a little kid, I grew up in northern New Jersey, but I always say between 7th and 10th grade, for various reasons and life circumstances, I was in 5 schools in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
I was in a small little parochial religious school. Then I was in a bigger, public school in my town. And then my parents split up and I moved with my mother to Los Angeles. And then my parents got back together and I came back to a school for a different high school. And then my brother and sister, one of them finished college. They had a few extra dollars and for 10th grade through 12th grade, they threw me into the fanciest high school, private high school.
Oh, wow.
in the area. And I had a front row seat to what some kids have in education and what some kids don't.
Wow.
And I saw all the opportunity gaps that we talk about. It was on full display. In some schools, I was the wealthiest kid. In some schools, I was the poorest kid. In some schools, I was the brightest kid. Some schools, I was the most struggling. I saw
Wow.
and I saw what resources people have to help them and what resources people don't. All right there. And then, so a couple things happened. One, I got very good at making a lot of friends quickly. I got pretty good at playing basketball and being a point guard and passing the ball so people would become my friend, which played out for me later on. But when you see all the disparities, there they were. I showed up at this fancy private school. I did very well there. I was the only one who appreciated it. Everybody else had been there since kindergarten. They were sick of each other. They were sick. I'm like, do you guys know how nice this place is? So that all the teachers really liked me. So there was that to see right there. I saw that. The other thing was I grew up in a family that didn't always have all the resources, but they always believed in kind of all the extracurricular activities. They spent whatever dollars they had, they put us in every program, signed us up for everything at the rec center, the Y, a camp, get a job. And they made sure that me and my brother and sister had all those opportunities. And so when I finished college and moved to New York City as a single guy, this idea of giving young people opportunities so they have options and not just giving kids chances, but giving kids choices, that was something I benefited from, and that was something I felt I was in a position to try and offer to others.
Aaron, that's fascinating. And I think your perspective is so important because so many people are through no fault of their own, just based on background, demographics, parentage, what have you, are in their own bubble and they don't have that varied perspective. But to hear you talk about the fact that you saw it all, you identified with different subgroups or categories of kids, it rounded out your perspective in a unique way. And it's also telling that after having that experience, you found it important to dedicate your life's work to helping kids. You mentioned basketball. We've talked about it, and I was an athlete. By the way, I was a shooting guard, so I wasn't passing. Just so we're very clear.
I would have loved to be on your team. I would have given it to you every second. That would have been great.
I was not passing the ball, so I'm I'm not as altruistic as you by nature. But basketball also led you, along with this commitment to help kids, to doing more work hands-on to help kids outside of the school day. So talk about that and that experience in New York.
Sure. So after college, I moved to New York City. I was in a leadership program, and then I worked at Moody's Investor Service. I was a bond analyst, but I was volunteering because I wasn't married, didn't have kids, so I started volunteering with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I would hang out with a great kid who was 14, and we'd go every weekend, go do some fun activities. And there was a woman running the mentoring program, and I would check in with her, and she said, "Do you know any other guys? I have a huge waiting list of teenage boys looking to hang out with older male role models, and I cannot find any men. I have a million women who want to volunteer, but these teenage boys who want to hang out with older guys." And meanwhile, because I was always into basketball, I would play twice a week after work in all these gyms and leagues around New York City. Hundreds of men, mostly men of color, all college educated, great jobs. But they all thought they were too busy to volunteer with kids, but they all made plenty of time at 7 o'clock on Tuesday to Thursday to play basketball. So as I say, it didn't take a rocket scientist. I was like, I could help you. And then I'll just tell you something funny, Kevin, because you're a big basketball fan. Bill Bradley, when he ran for president, who was a senator from New Jersey, but he had played for the Knicks and was a Rhodes Scholar. When he was running for president, he came out with like a coffee table book called Values of the Game.
Oh, yeah.
Life and leadership lessons I could learn from basketball. And I was so into basketball that I bought that book. And once I read that, I was like, this should be a curriculum for a basketball camp. And so from that, using that leadership curriculum, trying to help Big Brothers Big Sisters, I created with some friends the Hoops and Leaders basketball camp, where for 8 nights and 2 weeks, the New York City Parks Department gave us the rec center in the West Village. And I got 100 teenage boys, and I got 100 men in their 20s and 30s. And the camp ran from 5 at night to 9 at night, because it had to happen after work. And it was for the last 2 weeks of the summer, and every night had a leadership theme, and there was a leadership themed basketball practice, and then the guys would come after work and put on uniforms, and they have dinner, and we have speakers and leader and teams and ref and all the dinner, and to talk about jobs. And what was funny was the NBA always wanted to send me speakers every night who were players. I said, no one at this camp is that good at basketball. No one's going to be a player. Send me a team doctor, a ref, a broadcaster. Anyway, at the end of those 2 weeks, we would match everyone up and funnel them back into Big Brothers Big Sisters. This grew from Brooklyn, from Manhattan to Brooklyn, and then years later, I became a program director and the national president of Arnold Schwarzenegger's charity called After School All Stars.
Yes.
And I was able to bring that program with me to that national group. And this camp ran in 10 cities, and in every city, the local NBA team would pay for the camp. And in Miami, instead of playing at the rec center, the kids were playing in the Miami Heat arena. And same with the Bulls in Dallas. It became a whole thing. So anyway, that got me into this line of work.
You know, it's interesting, just an aside, and I do want to get into NSLA and the work you're doing with the Summer Learning, National Summer Learning Association. You mentioned Bill Bradley, terrific guy. When he ran for president, me and another member on the city council were his DC folks. So we had a fundraiser for him with Cory Booker and others where we sponsored that book. We gave that book away.
Oh, so you're familiar, you know.
Yeah, I know that real well. It's so interesting that the work you've done, you sort of match resources with needs that should be obvious, but in many communities, what those young men who are playing basketball with you said to you is a common refrain that I don't have the time, it's too hard, I don't know how to do it. But I always tell people a little bit goes a long way. And oftentimes once you get people started, it becomes positively infectious. In your work, engaging mentors for young people, working in these programs, even your current job, don't you find that you just have to start?
100%. First of all, that camp, which everybody thought was about kids, was equally impactful and as important to the mentors as it was the kids. I don't want to make it, I'll come back to your question real fast, but I just want to say the first camp I ran in New York City was August 2001, 3-4 weeks before 9/11. And then 9/11 happens. And all these mentors reached out to me and said, everyone's taking stock of their life. And they're like, this 2-week thing we just did was one of the most important things I ever did.
Wow.
How could I be helpful? And I would get $25,000 in scrunched up checks sent to me in an envelope from all these banker guys and whatever. Anyway, you never know the impact
Yeah.
you're going to have.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks they're helping kids, but obviously when you give to help others, it helps you even more. I would just say that, Michelle Obama always used to say when she would talk about getting kids to eat, vegetables and run around, it was like, make the right choice, the easy choice. And you gotta align with people's incentives. You go where they are. Don't make it too hard. And right, do you want to play basketball? Yeah. Do you mind playing with a 14-year-old? Sure. Do you mind talking to them about your job and your college? Okay, I get. You got to have dinner anyway. So it's like you got to, you make it, and you make it fun and make it not too difficult. I think to your point, I think that we are blessed in this country to have so many resources and so many organizations and so many millions of great people who want to help kids, and they don't always connect. And their lives could be made much easier if they would be coordinated. And so I have a luxury of having a perspective of knowing what people are doing. And so I've always been kind of this creative matchmaker trying to bring more resources to kids.
To that point, let's talk about the National Summer Learning Association. First of all, talk a little bit about your work. And it's so clear it's needed. COVID led to a spotlight on the learning gaps that exist in schools. But you and I both know that those learning gaps existed well before COVID. But now there's more attention to it. And people talk about this summer slide. But the reality is, for many kids in American schools, those deficits exist throughout the year. I have found, though, and seen that if a kid is in a robust summer learning program, they can not only make up for some of the gaps that exist just because of the summer slide, if you will, but also it can help them establish solid footing going into the next year.
Absolutely. So, so I'm currently, and have been for 5 years now, during this COVID period, the CEO of the National Summer Learning Association, which is a mouthful, so we call ourselves NSLA, just to abbreviate that. But the group's been around. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary. So it was started by professors at Johns Hopkins University. If you heard the phrase, as you mentioned, summer slide, summer learning loss, that comes out of research done by our organization, by these professors who tracked thousands of students in Baltimore for many years and could see that if you were higher income, you had great opportunities in the summer. We educate everyone during the school year, but then the summer we stop. And if you have resources and you're fortunate enough to be near programs and family can afford programs, you go and you keep learning in different ways and growing, and that's great, and you're ready for school in September. And then for millions of kids, they fall behind. Don't have that, and they fall behind. So this has been very well known, but it's always been a niche issue in education. And then COVID happened, and everyone got stuck at home. And even I sometimes say for more affluent families, it was like this empathetic aha moment for summer learning, because they're working, they have some money, but they got their kids at home, they're trying to save everyone's struggling. And I had a lot of people say to me, is this what happens for low-income families in the summer? I'm like, yes. You can hardly do it. Can you imagine you're working, your kids don't have programs, what are you going to do? So there's that. And then it became identified, it went, as I say, it moved from a niche issue to a national priority of our country to help all kids catch up. Yeah. So, Kevin, I'll even, if you just allow me for 30 more seconds, I'll just share. It was so funny. I mean, none of it was funny, but it was interesting that America shut down in March 2020.
Yeah.
Really, that was when we were like, okay, everybody stay home. So initially, I don't know what you call this, conventional wisdom, thought COVID might be a few weeks, might only be a few months. So at the very least, they said, all right, well, if kids were missing from March to June, that's about 3 months. Who has research on what happens to kids when they're out of school for 3 months? Well, that was our organization. We conduct research on that and all the negative effects. And then they said, well, now, every kid in America is going to have to be in a summer program to catch up. Who has expertise and research and best practices and knowledge on what makes for a good summer program? That was also our organization. So every single leader in education, from a local school and a local nonprofit to the U.S. Department of Education to the White House, our phone did not stop ringing for 2 years.
Wow.
And we didn't want to say, it was a crisis for the world, but it was a crisis for kids, and we didn't want to say no. And we've been trying to help everybody we can, and we've grown. And Joe Biden mentioned summer learning as a priority in his State of the Union a couple months ago, and Secretary Cardona has come to our conference every year for the last 3 years. And our conference used to be 400 people. Last year was 1,500 people. And they say with all the American Rescue Plan funding, which we could talk about, that came out, there was up to $30 billion that could be used on after school and summer programs if you chose. And there's research that shows now that for school districts, summer learning was one of their top recovery strategies.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to work with everybody we can to help everybody reach as many kids, but we have a primary focus on low-income kids, kids who qualify for the free and reduced lunch program, almost 30 million students. Those are the ones that we want to make sure have these great programs and opportunities, and that's who we focus on.
Let me jump in for a quick moment. For a lot of students, the traditional model just isn't the right fit. That's why more than 3 million families have chosen K-12 powered schools offering flexible, tuition-free learning options with certified teachers and a personalized approach that meets learners where they are. If that sounds worth exploring, you can head to k12.com/podcast. All right, back to the conversation. So Aaron, what makes for a good summer learning program?
A lot of different components, but we know what works. We give out national awards. I would direct anyone to our summerlearning.org website and look up our New York Life Award winners. We have almost 80 of them, and they're all different. But step one. So first of all, to define summer learning. In the quickest way, I would say, Kevin, it's if you take the best of the academic goals of summer school, so math, reading, STEM, and combine it with the best of the community building, leadership, team building, hands-on learning of summer camp. So if summer camp and summer school had a baby, you end up with summer learning. Okay. And that is really important because it can't just be one or the other. It can't just be certain kids get to go learn to play tennis and go hiking and learn a new language and take trips and do all these, get new skills, while some kids just have to do math and reading all day, but don't get to have fun or have more fun with these enrichment activities. And by the way, if you're doing all these things in nature, you should also be reading and learning math and science. Mm-hmm. So how do we get people to combine? I think two other things that are interesting is all these programs, and I've seen programs built around debate and being a lawyer. The New York Times is running a summer program right now, Kevin, called the School of the New York Times, where families pay $6,000 to send their kids to eighth graders to go live in NYU dorms and job shadow reporters and learn how to be a journalist and you're the food critic or the sports. I mean, there's so many medical schools are running. So there's a couple things. It's one, change people's ideas about traditional summer school. Historically, summer school was considered a punishment, remedial. If I told you or your kids or anyone I knew you had to go to summer school, everyone would say no. Teachers don't want to work in it. Kids don't want to go. Parents don't want to. Nobody was excited about that. So we had a whole reimagine summer school and summer learning. The thing that I would say is learning can take place in any setting. So it doesn't have to only be in the school building. So I think what's fun about a summer program is if you look in Boston, they got certified science teachers running programs for kids at the Science Museum, and they're getting school credit. You could do, all these different things. Like I was talking about the hospital programs. Mm-hmm. NIH is running a program for high school teenagers to learn how to be doctors. I mean, it's amazing what people are doing. But the real, besides the combination of academics and enrichment and real world and giving students a voice and a choice of what they want to learn and empower them to lead, is about relationship building. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the common trait that every one of our national award-winning programs that get all these great results, whether it was the Math Corps program in Detroit or Teachers in the Parks in Reading, Pennsylvania, where teachers sit on blankets under trees, it's that everyone feels seen, heard, and there's a sense of community where everybody cares about each other and everybody wants to come back every day. And that, I don't care if you do it through hip hop dance. I don't care what your angle is, what your focus is. That is what makes people want to come back. That's what makes people want to work in the program. It makes people want to fund the program and ultimately get results, academic results, attendance, mental health support results. And I've just seen it in all formats.
What's interesting, Aaron, is that because of COVID, it shined a light on, as I said earlier, and we talked about the learning gaps that are there. Even well-to-do families saw, got to look under the camel's tent and, see what was going on. in America's classrooms. But it also shined a light on some of the mental health challenges that these kids have. And there's a recurrent sort of theme I'm hearing from teachers and forward-thinking educators, sociologists, psychologists. And you said it, this idea of being seen and heard. For many of our young people, Generation Zers, COVID was devastating, and many wanted to, curl up in a shell.
Yeah. Suicide rates among teenage girls jumped 50%.
It's crazy. So, but this idea of relationship building and being seen and heard, what's interesting, the reason why I'm calling this out, Aaron, is that, and you and I have been in this work for a long time, 5-10 years ago, you wouldn't lead with describing a great summer program as a relationship building. You'd be talking about, most folks would be talking about the academics. You got to pick it up, pick up what you lost, blah, blah, blah. But I am glad to see that more and more people understand that, what we erroneously call soft skills are the real skills.
Yeah. Kevin, can I even ask, I'll even add further. I mean, I would get the question all the time from people. So I'm trying to set up the summer program. We have a great guide and training staff that go around and work and help people do these things. And people would say to us, what do I need to focus on more? Math and reading, or, mental health and social emotional? I'm like, this is a false choice. It's all of it. Both. Think about your own kid. What do you want your kid to, math or math? You need everything. But here's what's interesting. People are not good at everything.
Yeah.
Which is why you need partnerships. The other theme and thread, and you know this better than anyone, is about creative partnerships. Yeah. And so there are people who are great at supporting mental health. I was just with the JED Foundation. They are the leading suicide prevention curriculum organization. We're working with them to help get their resources. But, there's great groups who know how to teach math and reading, and you all do that. So how do you connect them together and combine these and braid these resources and get these partners together? I'll just say, I think, on the emotional part, and by the way, the staff, we have a lot of young staff. They were also suffering.
That's right.
I'm on the national board of the American Camp Association. That first summer, 2021, coming back to the college counselors, the college aid, they needed as much help, if not more, than the campers and the young students. And so everybody was in a bad place from isolation. People lost their patience with one another. Things that I talked to a million camp directors who were like, if your kid got into what used to be a small thing that you'd be able to resolve in 10 seconds, it blew up to a 10. Everything was like, it took a lot. We're still adjusting. We're still suffering. I'd like to just share real fast, though, a way we think about the why summer. For anybody listening who's an education leader or a parent, and we have other resources for everybody. But the thing that I think is interesting, we call them the 4 I's, and I'll go quickly. The 4 I's of summer, which is like the why. Simon Sinek always says, start with the why. So let's just take a step back and be like, why do summer programs matter, and why are they a good investment for all of us in our country? One, it's this time for improvement, but not just only for the students. All summer programs, great summer programs, double up as staff training. So when I was national program director of After School All-Stars, 90,000 kids, and every time we'd come out with a new curriculum, if I wanted everyone to know how to use it during the school year, we created a summer program that everyone could the whole curriculum on steroids, and all the staff would get it and bought in and see it, and then So when you frame it that way, there are a lot of summer programs that are new teacher pipeline programs. Breakthrough Collaborative is one of the largest teacher prep programs there is, but it's a free middle school summer program for 3 years, but they will tell you that they are training new teachers. So it's good for everybody, right? The second is about innovation, which Kevin, I know you care about. We think summer is the R&D time, the research and development time for the education field. If you have a new idea and a great new curriculum or new tool that you want to try out, before you scale it, work it out, test it out, make sure it works, and so you see a lot. And there's KIPP charter school started out as a 6-week summer program. I could just give you example after example. We think of it as one of the most unequal times, but one of the most entrepreneurial times. And I know you're a very entrepreneurial educator, but I think if you're someone who's entrepreneurial and cares about education, you want to work in the summer. These are less barriers to entry, and you can get these things. the last two that we've just touched on already is about interconnectedness. And, in education, everybody wants to work together, but once the school year starts, everyone's too busy. The train's left the station, nobody's got time. But in the summer, you got some time to plan, and you can actually execute and implement these partnerships. And if they go well, they carry on to the school year. And the last is about impact, which we know at the policy level, the program level, but most importantly at the personal level. And I don't know, Kevin, I'd be interested in you. Did you have a summer program that had an impact on you or not? Or did your kids participate in one?
Yeah, absolutely. My kids did, and I did as well. I found it very important and meaningful and loved every minute of it. In fact, during college, I worked with Indianapolis Parks and Recs and ran a summer program,
There you go.
So Aaron, I have one last question. And I must say, I'm just so glad you're doing the work you're doing and the organization is doing the work that it's doing. But we do have a good number of parents that were listening. And this is what I really want to know. What advice would you give to parents who some have summer programs affiliated with their child's school, but some may be looking for the right program for their child? How do they start?
Sure. So first, I want to direct them to go to a website that we've created called discoversummer.org. It has almost 60,000 program options. They should type in their city or their zip code, and all these different program options, affordable program options near them should pop up. And
what's that site again? Say it one more time.
Discoversummer.org. A lot of different options. There's Find a Camp, Find a Mentor, YMCA. I think what's also exciting to know is schools are offering programs, but there's so many community partner groups, like I've mentioned, that are running programs. And I think what you have to really do is know your kid. What are they passionate about? Here's a chance for them to learn something, not only to catch up on maybe something they struggle with or miss, but what are they passionate about? Are they passionate about cooking? Because by the way, as you know, we could teach math through cooking, right? You got measurements. Are they interested in music? I was just with somebody, they're sending their kid into a camp. There's a recording studio camp for his kid. So it depends how old your kid is, first of all. If they're kindergarten, first, second, elementary school, you tend to go to a program that's within the radius of where you live, and their libraries are running programs, all those community groups. As you get older, you could go a little further away. It could be a program out in nature, college campus, high school. And then as youth become high school students, it becomes a lot. Summer learning turns into summer jobs and summer internships, summer youth employment. And there's a big move to get school credit, teach entrepreneurship, get school credit for academic credit, plus get paid, plus learn about careers and passions. Trade unions are running summer camps for kids to learn skills, electrician unions. So there's a lot of different allies and partners working with summer programming that don't actually work with kids during the school year. So for parents, again, understand what's near you locally. Usually there's the mayor's office, there's the Department of Youth and Community Development, people who have more resources. We do the best. If you contact our group, summerlearning.org, we can connect you to people that we know. We have a network of almost 25,000 partners. School districts, nonprofits, youth-serving government agencies, corporate partners. There's also a lot of online tools, Kevin, as you know, and Stride knows and others that have great resources, apps, games, videos. So if you really can't get anywhere, there is stuff to do that I think is hands-on and interactive. The Achievery, that AT&T, there's a lot of different free resources. I cite that one, but there's, depending on what you're interested in, there are groups and there's curriculum, and we could help you vet and tell you what's good options.
Summer learning can be fun. Aaron Dworkin, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us, and good luck to you and your team. And again, thanks for being on What I Want to Know.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to What I Want to Know. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app so you can explore other episodes and dive into our discussions on the future of education. And write a review of the show. I also encourage you to join the conversation and let me know what you want to know using hashtag WIWTK on social media. That's hashtag WIWTK For more information on Stride and online education, visit stridelearning.com. I'm your host, Kevin P. Chavous. Thank you for joining What I Want to Know.